Oh hell yeah! There's a new Bleach game coming out, the visuals look amazing, the gameplay looks unique and in-depth, and it looks like it captures Bleach's essence perfectly. Ah, it looks so good, this game is gonna be like Bleach's answer to Sparking Zero. Ah, I can't wait. Oh yeah, that Bleach game was fun for a bit. I wonder what happened to it. Yes, it's me, making a video that isn't Sonic related finally. So I was sick recently, that intro wasn't an exaggeration, and during this I randomly decided I would rewatch the moments from Bleach because I had nothing better to do, and it got me wanting to play Rebirth of Souls again. And let me get this out of the way fast, I think this is an incredibly fun game, especially for Bleach fans. Where most anime fighters fall flat and kind of just feel like arena fighters where you use the moves of your favourite characters, leaving them feeling lifeless and bland, Bleach Rebirth of Souls feels like a fighting game built around how Bleach fights are structured in the manga. While I might criticise how sometimes the fights in Bleach can just feel like characters taking turns powering up and pulling out a new trump card. Looking at you, Uryu and Silapuro, or whatever your name is. They utilise this structure to make a very compelling and exciting battle system. If you aren't aware, Rebirth of Souls works on Konpaku, which are your individual lives, starting at 9 for most characters, and the amount of Konpaku you can take from your opponent is based on your spirit gauge, which at the start of the match you can only take 2 Konpaku using the Kikon move, which is a super move, when your opponent is below 30% health, or 3 Konpaku by depleting the enemy's health to 0 completely. But for most characters this can be increased up to 3 times, meaning if it is fully charged you can take up to 5 Konpaku out of depleting your enemy's health to 0. So even if you lose 2 and then 3 Konpaku, you can still make a massive comeback by increasing your spirit gauge enough. And if you think that all sounds too overcomplicated, I promise it's actually quite intuitive. I'm just really bad at explaining things. But additionally, the spirit gauge also acts as your awakening meter, where you can transform into your Bankai or Resurrection state if you're 80% of the roster, or just to get a fucking cool and awesome arm if you're Chad. I just can't imagine him losing. This in turn makes fights flow naturally, and when you transform and turn the tides of battle TM, it feels intense and rewarding. Bankai Ichigo having a really cool example of this, unique to him, as Ichigo starts out with 8 Konpaku, naturally putting him at a disadvantage as if you can increase your spirit gauge right, you can only take 2 Kikon moves to beat Ichigo. However, if you can fully increase your spirit gauge before dying, Ichigo will reawaken and transform into the fucking Vastal Lord form, which is crazy strong but not something you can just activate in every match, making it feel earned and rewarding again. I mean, Aizen also has this, and also a special mechanic with Kyoku Sugetsu where he can just no-sell the opponent's Kikon move.
But I don't like him, so I'm not going to talk about it.
Actually, I think Aizen should have a special mechanic against Toshiro where if you use Kyoku Sugetsu, it makes Toshiro stab Hinomori. But this faithfulness, not only to Bleach's characters, but also how the story structures its fights, make matchups like Ichigo vs Ulquiorra satisfying and grandiose, whilst still being a competitive fight that you can enjoy for its depth. Touching on this aspect, Rebirth of Souls feels like it takes a lot of inspiration for its mechanics not from other arena fighters, but your typical 2D fighter. Now, it's not going to have quite the depth of a typical fighting game due to the extra dimension making that a lot more difficult, but it manages to implement some other mechanics to still make it more interesting. I mean, first of all, individual characters aren't just the same character with different moves, they all have their own unique gimmicks and gameplay style that can drastically change how you play. For example, Yamamoto is essentially Nagoriyuki, featuring a lot of heavy hitting moves but will gradually build up his meter that, once max, will start to drain his health, forcing you to really play strategically and make every hit count. Or Shunsui, who even includes his children's games into his moveset upon awakening. Aizen is very unique as he doesn't feature a regular spiritual power meter like the rest of the roster, but the most unique of which probably being Dangai Ichigo. Remember all that crap I said about Konpaku or whatever? Yeah, completely forget about all that. Dangai Ichigo doesn't play by those rules. Instead, all Dangai Ichigo needs to do is land 3 Kikon moves to go final gets a Katensho on your ass and instantly win. He might be a bit overpowered. But the game also features what it calls reverse actions using this reverse meter, which for any Guilty Gear fans in the room is like if Burst and Roman Cancel was on 1 meter because that's essentially what this does, as you can use it either during your opponent's combo to escape it or in the middle of your own combo to extend it. Reverse actions can also be used to regenerate health and quickly charge your awakening. Oh, and also you can flash step using it, which can be used to perfect dodge, that's cool too I guess. But these features assist in creating a very competitive battle and adds a pretty interesting strategy to the game, which I don't know how many times I have to say, it feels so rewarding and exhilarating when you manage to turn the tides of battle, TM. And just to add to the dopamine rush, can I talk about the music? I don't know how many people there are out there that care about soundtracks in general like I do, and I'm not just talking about listening to video game OSTs, I mean like listening to the Takobi soundtrack on my way to work. And with Bleach having probably my favourite soundtrack in anything ever, Rebirth of Souls had big shoes to fill. And while obviously not up there with the Bleach soundtrack, its music is still great and fits Bleach's style like a glove, I feel. Composed by Takahara Ishimoto, known partly for his work on Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy soundtracks, but more so with The World Ends With You. And can I say, he has just done a wonderful job on this soundtrack, and the Toei influence can very much be felt on a lot of the tracks. Each character getting their own theme that plays when they enter their awakened state is just so perfect, I don't have any other way to describe it. And even if you don't like your character's awakened theme, you can still change the battle music in the menu for your regular awakened and reawakened battle music, making the battles that much more enthralling. It is so perfect for a Bleach game. I mean, listen to this. The back and forth gameplay, as I mentioned earlier, combined with an amazing soundtrack, really elevates certain story moments that make it actually exciting to play through, such as the fights against Byakuya, Ulquiorra, and especially Kenpachi. Now, if you could please add the anime soundtrack, or at the very least add number 1. I mean, how can you have this as a feature and not have number 1 in the game? I get there's probably licensing issues, but this is actually an anime music pack I'd be okay with buying. Just give me the option. I cannot stress to you enough how vital this is for the game. So with all of these positives, this sounds like a game primed for success, so what happened? Well, since we've been talking about the gameplay so much, I feel it fitting to first mention my biggest problem with the combat in this game. With so much potential for mechanical depth and how unique each character is, it is such a shame that combo routes available to you are often so limited, as you only have 2 main attack buttons for your light and heavy attack, which isn't too uncommon for arena fighters, but along with your signature move and a mere 2 special moves, it feels so weird that the combat is limited this much. Like with the 2 attack buttons, I can at least see that from a perspective of wanting to keep the game easy to pick up and play with universal B and B combos, but still difficult to master, but limiting your offensive options like this gives you way less ways to perform combos, and a lot of your offense just ends up feeling ultimately the same. On top of this, you can't really have overhead or low attacks because implementing that in a 3D fighter would be so clunky and overcomplicated, so that also limits your options to open up your opponent, and block strings become almost non-existent. So more often than not, it becomes a back and forth blocking game of trying to either bait your opponent into whiffing or sneaking in a grab. Because of this way you have to play the game, characters like goddamn Kenpachi of all characters end up low tier because it is significantly more difficult to open up your opponent with such a slow character, as a lot of Kenpachi's moves rely on super armor to close in. But because everyone plays so safely that super armor is almost pointless in most cases. Even using the reverse meter to extend your combo usually just ends up in performing the same chain of attacks followed up with a flash step. Now, this isn't an issue that's exclusive to Bleach Rebirth of Souls. As I mentioned, this is a common problem with pretty much all arena fighters, as adding that extra dimension ironically enough ends up being quite limiting, but I feel this could be solved by just adding different combo routes for if you hold forward and back on the stick, with each move having their own properties and frame data. And this in some form does exist in the game, but only as a single attack by tilting up and pressing heavy attack. But for most characters, this just results in a lunge attack. Now I should add that there are also dash attacks that can sometimes result in different combo options. The best example of this fittingly being Yoruichi, as dash attacks result in stronger moves that can be extended using a signature move. Now obviously not every character needs ridiculously high combo counts, I'm just asking for more offensive options to spice up the gameplay, as this could greatly increase the game's depth. Now when it comes to online, I've had very mixed experiences with online. Sometimes I'll be able to find matches incredibly easy, the gameplay is smooth and responsive, yet other times I'll wait ages just to find a game that plays like garbage and I don't know why. I'm pretty sure this connection was so bad it disconnected my entire internet. I play on PS5 so I can't speak for the rest of the player base, but the hype has very obviously died down in this game and the online feels very empty because of it. It's incredibly common to match with the same person multiple times, often right after fighting them beforehand, and more generally to an extent, a game's quality isn't affected by the amount of people that play, but for a fighting game, it very much does help the experience. And while the developers can't just summon more people to play the game, there isn't much to really keep a lot of those players coming back. Content for the game, especially online, is very limited, only getting free match, ranked match, and no other modes. Ranked matches I don't even think were available at launch. In fact, I don't even fully understand what the rank in ranked matches even are. There really isn't much motivation for people to continue playing for too long. Maybe if there was some clear visual rank that could be shown off in like a lobby or something, that could act as a good reward to motivate players to improve. Playing into how each character plays differently, you could also earn a badge for defeating a specific character a number of times, similar to other fighting games. Even just adding a tournament mode for both offline and online would go a long way in giving people a reason to come back. As it stands now, there doesn't feel to be much of a point to online matches other than just random fights, which seems self-explanatory, but for comparison, when I'm playing Guilty Gear, I'm always playing to get better, to find a counter to a character I'm struggling against, and to find the best way to execute my game plan against my opponent. But when I'm playing Bleach Rebirth of Souls, I'm not really doing much of any of that, just trying to hit my opponent before they can hit me. And this is getting back to the gameplay issues I was getting at earlier, and it's not that this is particularly bad in this game. As I've stated before, this is an issue with arena fighters as a whole. I'm only choosing to compare this game to a traditional fighter as opposed to other arena fighters, as I do see this as a step above other arena fighters, and has quite a lot of potential to stand on its own as a competitive fighting game. Maybe not up there with the likes of Street Fighter, Guilty Gear, or Tekken, but as a solid fighting game with a passionate community behind it. Although, in saying that, yes, I definitely say Bleach Rebirth of Souls is the best anime arena fighter out there. That's kind of like if I went and entered a kid's sports day. Like, yes, I did get first place, but that's because my competition is a bunch of 5-year-olds and half of them are eating mud most of the race. Now this brings me on to the main talking point I've kind of alluded to that extends not just to other fighting games, but games as a whole. As games get more expensive both to buy and produce, executives don't want to spend the time and resources adding a bunch of extra content to a game, because now more than ever, games are at a greater risk of failing, because audiences are becoming harder to win over as trends and hype die off quicker than I can come up with a good analogy for this. So they simply did not want to risk doing any more than add the bare minimum content so they can get everyone's money with the promises of future content with the DLC season pass. But even that is releasing incredibly slowly. It's been over 6 months and only 2 individual characters have been released and nothing else. Although now they released the 2 remaining DLC characters at the time I've been working on this video, so I feel like that really says more about me than anything else. On top of this, I somehow haven't even mentioned how the game released on PC yet. Players were having some of the worst performance issues I've ever seen in a fully licensed game, causing the game to be genuinely unplayable for certain PC rigs. Apparently, one fix was to change your computer's region to Japan. Like, how does that even happen? Regardless, from what I've seen, the issue did get fixed, but the fact that it even released like that in the first place is ridiculous. Ultimately, a lot of problems that I have with the game come down to lack of content. While the game's piss-poor optimization on PC certainly expedited the game's death, the lack of options certainly doesn't help. And games as a whole nowadays are getting way too comfortable releasing in broken states with very minimal content, because there's always the hope that it could be added or fixed in a future patch, which leads to more and more games being abandoned because people don't have the time to wait around for these games to be fixed. The same thing happened with Sparking Zero, and people started turning on that game because there wasn't enough content at launch to keep people coming back, and content was being added quickly enough to satisfy current players. It only worked out for Cyberpunk because Edge Runners came out. But hey, they got your money, so that's all the higher-ups care about at the end of the day. In a sense, there is plenty of offline content with a secret story, and I don't want that to go unappreciated, and it is a cool addition. In fact, at first I was very excited to go through this and was even planning to fully 100% the story, but after almost completing the World of Living and seeing how much more there was just for the Soul Society alone, it really sucked a lot of that excitement out of me, as a lot of the cutscenes aren't exactly high quality enough to warrant sitting through all of them, especially for a character I don't give a shit about like Shuhei. Sorry any Shuhei fans. Or 2 of you. So at that point, I'm really just doing regular fights with an occasional objective. And the lackluster cutscenes are most likely due to trying to cram so much story in that they didn't have enough time to give them the polish they needed to make them worthwhile to play through. Which may sound like an odd complaint since I was just complaining about the lack of content, but there's not really much more substance here as the main problem. And it's not like these stories aren't compelling. I joked about not caring about Shuhei as a character, but I actually found his story somewhat interesting. But the way the stories all feel so disconnected makes it so monotonous to play through. I just simply didn't want to play it. Something else I wanted to mention, so I'll just sneak it in here, is that I feel another reason for the lack of hype is that the game's release came at a very unfortunate time when it came with coinciding with the anime. As the third core finished at the end of 2024, and the final core doesn't release until 2026, an entire year after the game's release, meaning there just aren't going to be as many people interested in Bleach this year, so it's already an uphill battle to begin with. So for that reason, I assumed there wouldn't be any Thousand Year Blood War content to avoid spoilers for anime-only watchers. But Thousand Year Blood War Ichigo includes a major spoiler that hasn't been animated yet, so there really isn't much reason to exclude it other than just trying to put out a grand total of 4 DLC characters post-launch. And that's not even to mention the Fullbringer arc getting completely snubbed. So in conjunction with the game lacking in content and its slow DLC releases, it releasing during a low point in a franchise that is already not talked about nearly as much as other big shonen anime did not bode well at all for the game's longevity. Unless you want to imply that Bleach isn't cool? which as we know, it definitely is. In writing this script, I'm realizing I'm probably coming off very pessimistic, but believe me, I actually do really like this game. As I've mentioned towards the start, it has a lot going for it that makes it a really fun game, and I still do enjoy playing it from time to time, regardless of the quiet online. But unfortunately, despite how well it incorporates the style of Bleach into its gameplay, it's unfortunately held back by a small amount of major issues that really end up driving players away more than anything. But if this video has accomplished anything, I hope you do see the potential here in what is otherwise a very fun game, despite its flaws, because at the end of the day, I think it's just cool that we get to have a Bleach game in the year 2025, and it be as good as it is. Oh shit, I barely got to talk about the story mode in this video. Oh well.